This video is to help students install and program a servo for their motobit. So inside your plastic bag here in your kit that has a distance sensor and 2 servos, let's get out the servos and take a look at them first. You'll notice here that the servos have 3 wires coming out of them, a brown, a red, and a yellow wire. And if you lightly turn them, be very careful, you'll notice they turn half a turn and then they stop. Be really careful when you turn them. This white part comes off and you could reattach it at a different angle. So the idea here is that these can turn about a half circle, or the same as a protractor. Now, first we need to know how to plug these in. So if we look closely and zoom in on our motobit, you'll notice that there are pins along the top row. The first 6 sets, 2, 4, and 6, say sensor under them, but the 7th and 8th say servo. And you'll notice that one of these at the top says P15 and the other one says P16. We're going to start by using the P15 one. And when we take the wire out, we're going to want the brown wire on the bottom. The darkest one is going to be matching our ground, and the lightest one, the yellow one, is going to be matched up with P15. So we're going to go and plug this in on the P15 row, and making sure that the yellow wire is on top. All right, and we'll come back and look at this later after we program it. Okay, to program our motobit, we're going to want to click on the Microsoft MakeCode link in the robotics section here and open up MakeCode. And we're going to actually start with a brand new project for today. So we can click on New Project, and we're going to call that Servo. Okay. Now, once that's loaded up, in case we want to add to this later, we should add in the motobit extension. Even though it's not needed for servos, eventually we're going to be using servos and motors together. So let's go down to the bottom of the advanced section, click on extensions, and we can search for the motobit, the motobit. And when we search for that, we can click on it, and now we have the motobit extension here. So let's be careful and put in a show number block from the basic category and a turn motors on block from the motobit category here. Okay, so to make our servo move, for today, we're going to learn how to do that using a button push from the input section. If you remember, inside the input section, we can get certain actions to happen when we press a button. So for today, we're going to add in that it's going to move the servo when we push the A button. So again, you'll need a button A pressed from the input section. Okay. So the actual blocks that control servos are kind of in a weird place. They're not up here in the basic regular categories. You do need to go to advanced and scroll down to this pins category. That's under advanced. And when we open up pins, we'll see near the bottom of that, there is a servo right pin P0, servo right pin P0. It's not the servo set pulse, it's servo right. We're going to need 2 of those. So I'm going to go in and grab 2 of those. We're also going to need some pauses. So let's go to the basic category and scroll to near the bottom. And let's pull in a couple pauses as well. Okay. Now, at first, we need to figure out what angles to put the servo at. So think of the protractor example. This has all the angles starting with 0, 90, and 180. Now, the blue part of this servo is going to be attached to your robot somewhere, and the white part of the servo is going to be what we attach whatever is going to move to. And this has the ability to move to any angle we want from 0 to 180 degrees. So depending on how you hold this thing, it can produce different kinds of motion. If we hold it straight up and down like this, then this is turning rotation. Turning rotation could be a head glued on here that rotates back and forth. Now, if you hold it sideways like this, then the rotation is forwards and backwards. And then if you hold it facing forward, the rotation is back and forth. I think it would be probably easiest to imagine this as gluing an arm to this and just having the arm wave back and forth a bit. So if we imagine what angle that would be at, we can have it start at about 45-degree angle. That's about halfway from 0 to 90, and then end up at about 135, which is about halfway between 90 and 180. So 45 and 135, back and forth between those two. So what we'll need to do is grab a servo block. Remember, we got that in the pins category, the servo, right? And there's two things here that get controlled. One is what pin we plugged the servo into. And if you remember, at the top row, it said P15. So we need to change this P0 to P15. All right. And then we can add in a number here. We said we're going to start with it at an angle of 45. So let's type in the number 45. And so when we push the button A, it will send the servo to that's plugged into P15 to 45 degrees. So let me try it out over here. And there, that worked. Now, if we're going to send a second instruction in, the problem is that we need to give the servo a chance to get to 45 degrees before we send it to another angle. So that's why we need a pause in there. We're going to start with 100 milliseconds as a pause, and we'll see if that's enough. Okay, we'll have to do a little experimenting. When we pull the second servo block in, we need to also make that P15 as well. We want to make sure all of our servo instructions are headed to pin 15. And this time, instead of being at angle 45, we're going to send it to angle 135. Now, this is just for an experiment. What you are going to use your servo for is going to be up to you. And these numbers and the pauses will probably be different eventually when you build yours. So we're going to pull another pause block in here. So it can do both of these, and both actions have time to do their action before the next instruction. So let's click on the A button. And what I'm seeing is that it's not quite getting to 45 before it goes back. So that tells me that the pause here is not long enough. Let's try changing this to 200 milliseconds. And when I press that, it's still not quite getting there. So I'm going to try maybe 300 milliseconds. on each one. And let's try that out. And that's enough there. Now I could slow that down by adding more pauses if I wanted. I could make it a 500 millisecond pause, and we could see that that now moves a little more slowly. So it needs to be at least 300 to get to there. And then depending on how fast you want it to wave back and forth, that number could be more than 300 if we wanted it to. Okay, so let's download this and see what it looks like. All right, I have mine downloaded, and I'm going to plug my batteries in here. And it's showing my number of 0 here on here, so I know I have the right answer. Now I've colored one of my sides of my servo red so you could see it a little more easily, but let me press my A button. And with the batteries plugged in, I can see that it's moving back and forth fairly easily. Now, at this point, I could add in a second servo if I wanted, and plug that in to P16. There's 2 spots for servos here right next to each other. Make sure that the second servo's yellow wire is on the top there. So you've got it plugged in both there at P15 and P16. So to be able to have both servos working together, if we wanted those the same, we would need to go back into the pins category and get 2 more servo instructions. And these ones we want to set at P16. These will be our second servos. And we could put these in and have the numbers be identical to each other. You'll notice that I put the first P16 in there with the first P15 before the pause, and then the second P16 I made identical to this before the second pause. So I grouped them together so they move together. All right, let's download this and see if it works. Okay, I've got my second one downloaded. I changed my show number to 1 here, and let me plug in the batteries. Let me hold up both of these servos, and when I press A, they now both move. And that'll work. Now I could get this to repeat and have it wave twice each time by adding a loop in. I could say repeat 2 times and put that around. Well, let's see, I would need to pull all of this inside the repeat loop and put that inside of button A pressed. I made it repeat 2 times. So let me download that and see if I can get that to work. All right, I downloaded mine. I'm plugging my batteries back in. I'm showing my number 2 on this now. And let's see if this does it twice every single time that I press the button. So I put in that loop and I'm going to press the A button. And it did it twice. Now, if I wanted that to go faster, I could make the pauses shorter. If I wanted it to go longer, I could make the pauses longer or slower. And basically, this is how you would connect up a servo. So I hope this helps.